Some years are just different. They're more than just a date on a calendar. They feel like a hinge point in history, right? A moment where the old world just kind of gives way to the new. Well, 1908 was one of those years. It was the moment America slammed its foot on the accelerator and just charged headfirst into the modern age. So let's dive in and see what made it so incredibly pivotal. So the year kicks off with a bang, or, well, a drop, I guess. As 1907 turned into 1908, you've got these huge crowds gathering in Times Square. They're there to see something totally new, the very first ball drop. Little did they know, they weren't just ringing in a new year, they were unknowingly kicking off a whole new era. And we are not talking about some little party favor here. This thing was a 700-pound marvel of wood and iron, lit up by 100 of those brand new fangled inventions, light bulbs. It was basically a beacon of confidence, a symbol for an America that was, quite literally, plugging in and lighting up the world. And really, who could have captured the spirit of the age better than Thomas Edison himself? When he said, anything, everything is possible, it wasn't just some nice, hopeful quote. No, that was the operating manual for the entire year. A year that was absolutely defined by breathtaking innovation and, you guessed it, boundless ambition. Okay, first up, let's see how this optimism wasn't just talk. In 1908, America literally got moving. We're talking about two technologies that would forever, and I mean forever, change how we see the world. The car for everyone, and the honest-to-goodness airplane. So on October 1st, Henry Ford unleashes the Model T. And wow, was it a game changer. See, before this, cars were basically just toys for the rich. But the Model T? It was built for everybody. It was simple enough that you could fix it yourself. It was tough as nails with its vanadium steel body, perfect for the country's awful roads. And it was finally affordable enough to give the average family a taste of freedom. It wasn't just a car, it was freedom on four wheels. At the same time, the Wright brothers are having probably the most dramatic year of their entire lives. I mean, they'd been working in secret, and now they had to prove to the whole world that their flying machine wasn't some kind of hoax. And man, it was a total roller coaster. You have Wilbur just stunning everyone in France with these graceful flights. Then Orville is back home setting world records, only for tragedy to strike with the first ever fatal plane crash. But Wilbur, he just pushes on and ends the year with an unbelievable 2-hour and 20-minute flight that proved once and for all that humanity had actually conquered the skies. So this incredible technological skill, it gives America a new kind of swagger, right? A confidence that wasn't just going to stay within its own borders. The nation was ready to announce its arrival as a global power, and it decided to do it in a really, really big way. President Teddy Roosevelt had what he called a perfectly bully idea. He decided to send 16 of the Navy's newest battleships, all painted a brilliant, gleaming white, on a tour around the entire globe. This great white fleet was doing two things at once. On one hand, it was a pretty clear message of strength, kind of like a don't mess with us, especially to rivals like Japan. But on the other hand, it was a diplomatic goodwill tour, and it was met with huge cheering crowds from Brazil all the way to Australia. It was America showing it could flex its muscles and extend a hand of friendship at the exact same time. But, and this is a really big but, while America was projecting this shiny image of progress and power to the rest of the world, the story back home was way more complicated. That soaring optimism we've been talking about, it was constantly being dragged back down to earth by deep, violent, and unresolved fights over race and labor. I mean, the contradictions were just jarring. In the very same year, the Supreme Court gave women some limited protection by upholding a 10-hour workday. Something completely different was happening in Birmingham. There, you had an interracial union of coal miners, black and white, striking together for basic rights. While the mine owners responded by whipping up racial fears to divide them, and then the state sent in the military to just violently crush the whole thing. So yeah, progress for some came at a brutal, brutal price for others. And the deepest wounds, without a doubt, were about race. And the most shocking example of this exploded in a place that should have been a symbol of freedom, Springfield, Illinois, the hometown and the final resting place of Abraham Lincoln himself. The spark was a lie, a false accusation of rape made by a white woman against a black man. When the local sheriff, who was worried about a lynching, secretly moved that man and another black prisoner to safety, the mob that had been waiting just boiled over into this uncontrollable rage. For 2 straight days, a white mob just terrorized Springfield's Black community. They burned homes, they destroyed businesses, they targeted 2 innocent men, Scott Burton, a local barber, and William Donegan, who was 84 years old, dragged them from their homes and brutally lynched them. This violence, happening in the land of Lincoln, sent shockwaves across the entire country. But out of that absolute horror came a powerful, organized response. The Springfield riot was the direct reason for the founding of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or the NAACP. A multiracial group of activists saw this and said, enough is enough. A new national fight for civil rights had to begin, right then and there. And yet, even in the face of so much hatred, 1908 also gave us this moment of incredible triumph. On December 26th, a boxer named Jack Johnson defeated the reigning champion to become the first African-American heavyweight champion of the world. For Black Americans, in a year filled with so much pain, his victory was this huge, powerful symbol of strength and resilience. So, with all this change happening, all the speed, the new technology, the social conflict, it created a need for new kinds of structures. So in 1908, Americans were also busy building the very institutions and making the political choices that would end up shaping the rest of the century. Just think about the cornerstones that were laid this year. As cars started taking over, William Durant founded General Motors, a future giant. As the country got more complex, the government created a Bureau of Investigation, the ancestor of the FBI, to tackle new kinds of national crime. And to help shape the next generation, the Boy Scout movement began. These weren't just new clubs, they were the building blocks of modern America. And on the political front, the country made a choice for more of the same. Teddy Roosevelt stepped aside and handpicked his guy, William Howard Taft. He went up against the famous Democrat William Jennings Bryan, who was running for a third and final time. And you have to love the Republican slogan. It was so sarcastic. Vote for Taft now, you can vote for Bryan anytime. Turns out, voters agreed, and Taft won a pretty decisive victory. So as we start to pull all of this together, what we see is that 1908 wasn't just one thing. It was this incredible year of marvels that existed right alongside these deep, painful social conflicts. It was, in a word, a year of contradictions. And the year was just packed with other memorable firsts that became part of the American fabric. The Chicago Cubs won a World Series, something they wouldn't do again for 108 years. The Grand Canyon was protected as a national monument. You could literally buy an entire house from a Sears catalog. Oh, and Mother's Day was celebrated for the very first time. It was just a year stuffed with cultural milestones. And in the end, it really all comes down to this single idea. It was a time when Henry Ford's amazing vision of a car for everybody coexisted with the violent racist suppression of workers in Birmingham. That right there is the central, unavoidable contradiction of 1908. Ultimately, 1908 was the starting gun. It was messy, it was complicated, and it was often incredibly brutal. But it was also the undeniable beginning of what we now call the American century. It set in motion all the forces of mobility, innovation, and conflict that, let's be honest, we're still grappling with today. In all of that leaves us with one last question. In a lot of ways, 1908 feels both incredibly distant and shockingly familiar. It proved that a society can achieve these breathtaking technological leaps forward while being completely torn apart by deep social divisions. So more than a century later, it's a question we really have to ask ourselves. Has that much really changed?